Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. We're just waiting for Pedro to hop on. We're just waiting for Pedro to hop on. We're gonna be going over the Syrian war. Um, as you can see in the title, we're gonna talk a little bit about. Um, we're gonna go over the news, but we're gonna more or less talk about the pipelines. And we're going to debate a little bit about the causes of this war. We're going to debate a little bit about what we think is the true issue about this. And it's going to be a fun one. So we're going to wait till Pedro gets in so we can discuss. And yeah, so welcome to Zia Diplomacy. Well, we bring you a little bit of news around the world. Obviously, I'm more of a New Mexico centered kind of guy. Uh, giving you a little bit more news regarding New Mexico, the border, stuff like that. So yeah, let's just wait to see if Pedro shows up when he's going to show up, and we'll get going because we got some good stuff here. So yeah.
Puto.
Pedro, what's up, my boy?
Yo. Bro, it's like midnight in there in New Mexico.
Oh, I know, man, but I typically would be getting off work around 2.
Damn.
Yeah, the slave masters let us out early. How
Yeah. Oh man.
you doing, bro?
I'm doing well. Actually, I just came back from the gym, having some coffee, did some French reading, just a grind. Later today, I need to go to the dentist. Gonna get my teeth cleaned out.
Nice, man. Your beard looks good.
Yeah, I did like a whole ass. Yeah, I'm getting ready, for
Yeah,
Christmas
man.
and shit.
Christmas. I
Yeah, man.
agree.
Bro, I actually lost like 10 kilos.
Oh shit.
Yeah, man. Did you see like the slide picture I posted on my story on Instagram?
No, not yet. I haven't. I
No,
haven't. I
like it
haven't
was.
got. I haven't gotten thirsty yet.
But yeah, man, I used to weigh like 225 pounds. Now I'm weighing 200 pounds. That is like 11, 12 kilos.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Nice, dude. That's pretty badass. Well, dude, it's we are live streaming already.
Oh
So
fuck.
yeah, everyone, welcome.
Uh, do not look up my slutty pictures on the internet. Yeah.
So yeah, Pedro, can you tell the our viewers what they're gonna be hearing about from us today?
So as you probably have actually heard already on the news, some very new developments happening actually in the Middle East. Well, something's always happening in the Middle East, and this time is Syria. And the thing is that, well, we all remember that the Syrian war has been going on for like more than 10 years already, like the civil war. And it's actually been very static, like nothing has been happening. I think that people assumed that Assad was actually winning, but the rebels actually completely surprised us all, and they were actually able to like completely do like a blitzkrieg and take down like the whole political apparatus of the Assad regime, taking Damascus and taking Aleppo in the span of less than 2 weeks. Right now, as we're speaking, Bashar al-Assad is actually in Russia, as he had to actually flee along with his family for his life. And we're actually observing right now a transition to a possible new government in the country of Syria.
Yeah, so um on in the last days of November, essentially the rebel groups essentially like you said, they launched a surprise attack. Um I have a few things that we're gonna discuss, but just to give a little bit of context, That offensive happens in northwestern Syria. Rebels seized 13 villages, including the strategic towns of Al Sugra and Anshara, as well as Base 46, which might be American. I'm not. I don't. I'm not really sure.
It's
Um,
Russian. I think it's
that's right.
Russian.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, it's the largest Syrian regime base in the region. So it's pro Assad, right? Pro Assad. Um, and then later on, towards the last days of November, Russian sent warplanes bombing several rebel positions, but obviously to no avail. Um, the Iranian state media said that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, um, a senior Iranian military advisor in Syria, was killed in Aleppo. So, and then after that, several other settlements were seized, such as Hama and Homs. And on the 7th of December, the anniversary of Pearl Harbor, on the outskirts of Damascus, the rebel forces essentially reached the outskirts of Damascus, prompting Assad to leave. This is wild, bro. This implicates so much other things. Obviously, it implicates Russia, implicates Iran, it implicates essentially the whole Middle East. Pedro, what is your take? Are you pro Assad? Are you anti Assad? Or what's your belief?
I don't really take like any position. I have said in the past that Assad was actually would have been actually a better alternative. And this was actually a shared idea that also like the Americans and the Israelis had, just because there was a big worry that there are a lot of elements of the Islamic State and Al Qaeda amongst the rebels. But fundamentally speaking, this is one of those conflicts that it really is maybe perhaps better to be neutral about. Right now, after now that this war seems to be over, at least this part of the war is over, the big question that people are having right now is what now? And there are many ways that it could actually go. And one way is that the best case scenario is that we actually have a situation in which maybe that there is a transition towards like a new form of government, maybe Islamic but Western oriented, kind of like a Turkey, maybe like peace with Israel, peace with United States. Um, but at the same time, we need to also remember that because of like these elements within like, uh, I mean, we have to remember like the leader of the rebels used to be a member of Al Qaeda. He actually sworn loyalty to like Osama bin Laden. He could have changed over the last 15 years, but nonetheless, we could actually also observe conflict among the different rebel groups because there's just so many of them, and they probably have ideological difference when it comes to like what Syria will actually look like. So I wouldn't be surprised neither if we actually will observe like a reinitiation of the civil war again. Another thing that we could actually observe is Syria becoming just another Iran.
Yeah, yeah. It's it's problematic, the whole situation because it could be easy that Syria can be a whole another Palestine. There's a whole humanitarian crisis going on. Maybe eyes are going to shift away from Palestine and go towards Syria. Um, I'm pretty sure you remember the whole Syrian migration out of the country. People were fleeing. People were seeking asylum in Europe. Um, I know Germany received a lot of Syrians. I know Turkey received a lot of Syrians. I believe Jordan might have received Syrians as well. Um, so the what I'm concerned here is what's going to happen now uh, with the United States. What's the United States going to do? Because the United States supports the Kurdish population there. Um, so I I'm I'm pretty pro Assad, but I am neutral. But I understand that I know Assad did some shady shit back in the day. um, he was accused of using chemical warfare. Um, so it doesn't mean that the new leader will do anything even will be better. It might just be as worse, considering the power vacuum. But today we're also gonna talk a little bit about, I think, something that's debatable. Do you think this conflict is ideological? Do you think it has to do with resources? Do you think it's just a historical, contextual war? What do you think are the motives behind this war?
Well, I tend to see it more within like the range of like it's a proxy war. First of all, we need to remember this.
Hmm.
Like we all know that it was the Americans who were actually giving weapons, and also Israel that was actually giving weapons to the rebels. And whereas Bashar al-Assad had always been actually more aligned with Russia, and Syria had always kind of been like an important strategic area for Russia because it actually has a connection with the Mediterranean Sea. With the fall of Assad, this was actually a big blow for the regime of Putin. That's one we need to consider.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, because Syria is pretty much Russia's Afghanistan, right? In a way,
you could
or
say, you could say so. You could say so. What other dynamic we could actually observe too? I mean, there's several too, but I cannot think of one right now.
yeah. So I'm gonna share my screen. We're gonna look at a little bit about the who's involved in this conflict right now. Um, so let me share my screen real quick.
Yeah,
You can see the map, right?
yeah. Syria, Lebanon.
Yeah. So we have this part of the sea right here. Um, Syria is pretty big. It's not small.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and it has Turkey up to the north. It has Iraq to the west. It has Jordan to the south. It has Israel to the southwest.
That's
Borders
the Golan,
Lebanon.
which I believe the Israelis right now are actually occupying as we speak.
Yeah, yeah. They essentially infiltrated the buffer zone and are the what is that buffer zone called? The Golan Heights. The Golan Heights.
The Golan Heights, yeah.
So you can see my screen right here, right?
Yeah, I can see it. Wikipedia.
Okay. So yeah, we have the this map right here. So we have
Hmm.
the Syrian Transnational Government, we have the Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria, the SDF. We have the Syrian Interim Government and Turkish occupation, the green part. We have Russian occupation, which is right here, the purple part. The Israeli occupation and the Islamic State, which is the gray spot. So there's a lot of fingers in here.
Islamic State. Well, yeah. Let's see. Have a
So
couple
yeah,
pictures.
Israel invades the buffer zone. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. And as we're speaking right now, they're actually carrying out strikes against like certain like military key points in Syria, and that is because there is a pervasive fear among Western countries that elements like the Islamic State and Al Qaeda could actually take a hold on military equipment and also chemical warfare, chemical weapons.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, right here it says actually let's actually play a video. Let's play a video to give so it can explain a little bit better the because it's a complicated conflict. It's very complicated.
No, absolutely, yeah,
Y-
and it's
There's
been
so
going
many
on,
factions.
and it's been actually going on for a while, and there's actually been like different that's the thing also with the rebels, and part of the reason why I think that we might see like a reinitiation of a civil war is because amongst the rebels there is a lot like different factions. I think it's like
Yeah,
around 20 different groups, including the Kurds.
yeah. The Kurds are interesting because they're pretty much an autonomous group that are they're seeking autonomy.
Yeah.
Um, and they are backed by the U.S. coalition. They are backed by Turkey, and
No, they're
I
not.
think that's what's interesting.
No, no, no. Turkey hates the Kurds. And right now they're
Ye-
actually bombing the crap out of them.
Oh, I see, I see. But it's the U.S. coalition supports the autonomous Kurdish region, right?
I think that back when America was intervening at a greater level during the times of the Islamic State, ISIS, the Americans actually, they used the Kurds. They
Yeah,
made an
yeah,
alliance with them.
exactly. Yeah,
But fundamentally speaking, I don't think that neither the Europeans nor the Americans nor really anyone in the Middle East is really interested in the concept of the creation of a Kurdish nation, of a Kurdish state,
It-
especially Turkey, of all
yeah.
countries.
It seems that Turkey is establishing a sort of a power move. You know, Iran is obviously it got hit. Iran got hit hard when it comes to power in the Middle East, and Turkey, um, they kind of hit back pretty hard. Um, and let's not forget, the Ottoman Empire. Uh, Syria was part of the Ottoman Empire at some point.
Yeah, yeah,
So right now, I have a video. I kind of like this channel. It gives like those funny meme infographics kind of thing.
yeah. They're using like contraballs. I love those.
Yeah, yeah. The so politics with paint. Do
They just make life easier. Let me go to the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back before we
your thing,
start.
man. Do your thing.
Here I am.
All right, all right, all right. Let's see what they have to say.
Civil war has been reignited. In late November 2024, a coalition of rebel forces began a massive offensive against the Syrian government, forcing them to abandon huge swaths of territory while various factions grabbed as much land as they could. The government under Bashar al-Assad has now collapsed, and the situation in Syria changed completely. Now alliances are reshuffling while outside powers are trying to influence what is going on. The speed of this development has been staggering. So let's recap. What has actually happened in Syria, and how will the drastic changes affect the Middle East and global geopolitics? To answer that, let's first look at the factions involved and how the situation looked shortly before all of these events. This map shows the political situation in Syria as it basically existed from 2020 until the start of the rebel offensive in late November 2024. In red, we have the areas that were controlled by the Syrian government, led by Bashar al-Assad and the Syrian Ba'athist Party. During the first years of the civil war, Assad's rule was hanging by a thread until Iran, with its regional proxies, as well as Russia, intervened on his behalf, allowing his forces to recapture a lot of territory. Ideologically, Assad represents a wide mix of socialist and Arab nationalist ideas, while in practice, his rule has been characterized by authoritarianism, the brutal persecution of political opponents, and nepotism. Assad is also a member of the Alawite religious minority that predominantly inhabits the coast, which is why his rule seemed most stable there. Then we have the anti-government rebel coalition, displayed in two shades of green. The light green area, centered around the city of Idlib, is controlled by an alliance network of numerous militant organizations, most of which can be characterized as radical Sunni Islamist or jihadist groups. The strongest and leading organization here is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or short HTS, which was formed in 2017 out of multiple such organizations, including the Al-Nusra Front, an Al-Qaeda affiliate. Since 2018, the group has been widely recognized as a terrorist organization, but over the past years, HTS leaders have tried to change the outside perception of the group to appear more moderate. They've promised to protect the rights of Syria's religious and ethnic minorities. How sincere these promises really are in the long term is, however, questionable, as its fighters and leaders have a long history of acting in direct opposition to these promises. The current leader of the HTS, for example, was affiliated with both Al-Qaeda and ISIS in the past. The dark green area, meanwhile, is controlled by the Syrian National Army, which is also a collection of various militant groups and some foreign fighters. They too were founded in 2017 at the initiative of Turkey, which is the main supporter and supplier of funds and equipment. Unsurprisingly, the Syrian National Army is closely aligned with Turkey and usually acts in the interest of the Turkish state. They were, for example, not only fighting against Assad's forces, but are also fighting against Kurdish groups in the north and northeast that Turkey does not want there. This is in contrast to the HDS, whose activities are less aligned with Ankara. For example, the HDS has shown more interest in negotiating with Kurdish-led forces known as the Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF. The SDF controls the Yellow Territories and consists predominantly of Kurds, but also includes some Arab groups in the southeast. Especially their relationship with other actors is quite complicated. It's supported by the US and some other Western states, particularly for their fight against ISIS, but at the same time, they had a quasi-alliance with the Assad government for years and got some support from Russia. In the last few years, the SDF has been mainly fighting against the Syrian National Army in Turkey in order to retain the Kurdish autonomy they've established. Lastly, there are a few smaller factions still worth mentioning. In the deserts of eastern Syria, there are still some small pockets of members of ISIS that are still active. In the southwest, there is a small US-backed group known as the New Syrian Army that controls a desert near the main border crossing with Iraq, where a US military base is also located. And in southern Syria, there are multiple rebel groups that were initially fighting against Assad but later entered into an agreement with the government. But this situation has changed dramatically since the rebel coalition's offensive began in late November 2024. While this attack was surprising to many, it did not occur out of nowhere. Between 2020 and 2024, there were negotiations between many factions and outside powers to perhaps find a political solution, but these went nowhere. In the meantime, Assad's position in Syria weakened as his closest allies got distracted by other conflicts. For Russia, its war in Ukraine is currently taking up most of its attention and resources, while Iran has been focused on Israel and the wars in Gaza and Lebanon. This allowed the rebel coalition to consolidate and prepare for a future confrontation with Turkish support. As a consequence, the Syrian army and its allies were unable to repel the attack, which first caused a massive retreat of their forces in northwestern Syria. Very quickly, the important cities of Aleppo and Hama fell under their control, which caused even more retreats by government forces, while defections became commonplace. This encouraged other rebel groups to join the fray as well. In southern Syria, a collection of rebel groups that were previously in an agreement with Assad rose up again, calling themselves the Southern Operations Room. They too made very fast gains and in a matter of days took over the outskirts of the capital Damascus. back north, the HTS continued its advance and quickly took over the important city of Homs. In the meantime, SDF units took over abandoned government positions along the Euphrates River. The US-backed new Syrian army then also advanced, taking over the city of Palmyra in the eastern Syria and moving into Damascus from the northeast. Soon after, all government forces had either fled or surrendered, and local militias took over in places where the main factions had not reached yet, even in the Alawite Syrian coast region that was previously thought to be Assad's stronghold. Within just 11 days, the 50-year rule of the Assad family in Syria had come to an end. At the time this video was released, the exact whereabouts of Bashar al-Assad were still unknown, but it seems that he has been granted asylum in Moscow. But wherever he is, it's clear that a new chapter in Syrian history has begun. But before we talk about what might be next for Syria, what does this mean for the major outside players? Among the anti-Assad powers, Turkey might be the biggest winner. It may become the most influential outside player in all of Syria and has reached two of its key objectives: to oust Assad and to prop up the Syrian opposition, which is now in control of most of the country. However, this is likely not the end of Turkish ambitions here, because another of their key objectives is to end or at least significantly reduce the Kurdish presence in northern Syria, which Ankara believes is strengthening Kurdish separatism within Turkey. The United States is also very happy about Assad being gone, which also likely means an end to Russian and Iranian influence here. However, there are problems. Many of Syria's rebel groups, like the HTS, are way too radical for its liking and might become a problem for the future, especially in regards to its ally Israel. For Israel, the situation is somewhat awkward. On the one hand, it has long been keen on seeing Assad gone as he is a close ally of Iran, but at the same time, it is not really interested in seeing Syria being led by Islamist jihadist movements, under which Syria could again represent a big threat to it. One point of contention will likely be the Golan Heights, which are internationally recognized as Syrian territory but have been occupied by Israel since 1967. And Israel is already preparing for a potential confrontation. It has recently taken over the UN buffer zone surrounding the Golan Heights and conducted air raids in southern Syria and Damascus that are supposed to destroy government equipment before it falls into the hands of rebel factions. The pro-Assad powers, meanwhile, find themselves in an incredibly bad spot. For Russia, Syria has represented the main gateway for Moscow's influence in the Middle East and also harbors two extremely important Russian military facilities that are vital for the country's Mediterranean presence. According to some reports, the Russian military has already begun to evacuate these bases. Whether the Russian presence in Syria will soon be gone for good or perhaps somehow continue through an agreement with the leading factions is very unclear. For Iran, the situation may even be worse. Syria was an important link to its ally Hezbollah in Lebanon, which is now likely cut off. Now Iran has entered into a diplomatic dialogue with Syrian factions, including the HTS, in order to trade the security of Shiite minorities and the many Shiite holy sites in Syria for an Iranian acceptance of the new Syrian government. Whether this will work will be shown within the next weeks and months. But what about Syria itself? What will a post-Assad Syria look like? Well, it's difficult to say. At the moment this video was released, many Syrians and outside observers were hopeful. The brutal rule of the Assad family is finally over, and surprisingly, with very little bloodshed as well. If things go well, there will be a transitional government/council formed in which all factions within Syria will ideally negotiate a peaceful political solution for the entire country. Part of this may be the granting of some degree of autonomy to the country's minorities, including the Kurds, Alawites, and Druze. But at the same time, the cause which had now unified many factions, namely to topple Assad, is now gone, and the various factions left in Syria have different backers, goals and ideas for how Syria should be governed. If the negotiations between them stall in the coming weeks, what will stop them from fighting against each other? In such a scenario, we could see Syria devolve into another civil war. And let's not forget that the situation along the Turkish border could soon escalate too. There is already fighting going on between the Turkish-backed Syrian National Army and the Kurdish-led SDF on the west bank of the Euphrates River. With Assad gone, the Turkish government may see this as an opportunity to conduct a large-scale intervention in order to push Kurdish forces further south, although much will depend on how the US will react, which is currently supporting the SDF. Whatever happens now, let's hope that the people of Syria, which for years have endured incredible violence and destruction, will finally...
That is complicated as heck, man.
Yeah, man. It's like I don't know what would be the proper analogy because this is not football, man. This is like fucking 6D chess with 6 players, and everyone has like fucking revolvers, and everyone is circumcised.
Yeah, yeah. Like Syria is also home to a little bit of everything, right? Christians, Muslims.
I mean, like it
Uh,
does kind of like make you think of like the post-colonial British policy of just painting a random line in the map and without any like sort of like care for like the different like identities. And they were not thinking of identities; they were thinking rather more on like strategic areas, access to the sea and whatnot.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, and that brings us to the next topic in a sense. This on X, this is a post that says none of what happens in Syria is about liberation from any leader. It is only about this, and it shows um, the pipelines. It shows
there you go.
Iraq Syria pipeline, which is in red, Russia backed, and it shows a Qatar Turkey pipeline, which is US backed.
Yeah, it makes sense to be honest. And that's smart, fundamentally speaking, because you do not want to allow a adversary like Iran to actually have any sort of like leverage when it comes to like your energy, something so important like that. It is
Exactly.
already it is already uncomfortable that the Saudis actually have leverage, but definitely you do not want to allow Iran to have it.
Yeah, definitely. And we've seen this with various conflicts. We've seen this with Iraq. We've seen this with Ukraine. Um, so these that what do you think? Like, do you think this war? I personally think this war could be. Um, it has to do with resources as well, but it's hard, man, because um, Syria, Iraq, Iran are part of like the axis of resistance against Israel. You know, there's obviously Arab states that support Israel, and there's obviously Arab states that straight up are anti-Zionist.
I mean, the thing I think what's happening pretty much is that anti-Zionism in the Middle East is pretty much a dead cause. Egypt recognizes Israel, the Saudis recognize Israel, Syria, which was one of the last ally of the Iranians, has completely fallen. Assad has fallen. I mean, Iran, considering that Iran has pretty much just suffered blow after blow in regards to like their conflict with Israel, and pretty much has not actually gained anything from it. With Hezbollah being completely like wiped out and Hamas pretty much at the brink of total collapse too. That we might actually in the next maybe 20 years we might actually start observing like Iran kind of shifting their their approach to Israel just in order to be pragmatic about the situation.
Yeah, and just to give a little bit of I, we understand that whole Zionist, anti-Zionist, sentiment. That's why I say that maybe this war has to deal with more of a resource centered mindset. I don't think it's just we hate the Jews. I think it's just yeah, you might hate the Jews, but someone's giving you money to hate the Jews.
Which is a pretty Jew move.
It's a good move. It's
I would say that's a pretty Jewish thing to do.
it's a very yeah, exactly. Um, and I'm gonna read this real quick. So the Iran Iraq Syria pipeline, called the Friendship Pipeline by the governments involved, and the Islamic gas pipeline by some Western sources, is a proposed natural gas pipeline running from the Iranian South Par Notre Dame gas condensate field towards Europe via Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon to supply European customers as well as Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. So the pipeline was planned to be 3,500 miles long, um, and it was apparently abandoned after the Swiss energy company. I cannot say that. We're just going to call it Laufenberg. With Iran in October 2010 and the face of pressure over U.S. sanctions against Iran. So this pipeline is rivaled by, drum roll please, it is the Qatar Turkey pipeline. So the Qatar Turkey pipeline was proposed to build a natural gas pipeline from the Iranian Qatari, the gas condensate field towards Turkey, where it could connect with the Nabucco pipeline to supply European customers. So um, the agent's France press claimed serious rationale for rejecting the Qatar proposal was to protect the interests of its Russian ally, which is Europe's top supplier of natural gas. Crazy.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is a huge blow for Iran. At the end of the day, they pretty much lost like their last ally.
Yeah, yeah. And this, if that, I'm not sure where it's going to go in the sense of like, I know the world is moving into like sustainable energy and all that stuff, but it's still going to, like, these pipelines are not going anywhere. These pipelines are going to be built and it's going to come with war.
I mean, I think that there's kind of like this agreement that as we're actually like transitioning from energy from fossil fuels towards renewables, along the way, the bridge is actually going to be natural gas. Because natural gas, even though it's a fossil fuel, it is at the same time like one of the lowest emission fossil fuel out there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think this is just fascinating because I feel like as a society and as a culture, we're so enticed to feel based on ideology, based on our opinions, when in reality it's all just earth, minerals. It's all just how do you heat up your home, how do you cook your food, um, and then we just filter these kind of things with religion. We filter it with anti-Zionism. Um, so
It's all about the l'argent, the money, the money.
the money.
And I mean, people, for example, like the meme, the joke that is if someone discovers oils, American meal is going to be there. You know, going to bring freedom to you, whether you want it or not. But I think like this is a situation like both Europe and America actually share, especially as both of them are importers of energy, especially Europe, as they have a greater dependence. America could probably actually be self-sufficient,
Yeah,
but people need to remember that during the government of Jimmy Carter, the OPEC countries, the Arab countries, actually engaged on a oil embargo against the United States,
hmm,
which was detrimental for the American economy and an important factor for the stagflation that was happening in those times that led to Reagan to actually win the election.
yeah,
And whether Americans are aware of this or not, I think that that has actually like stayed within like their conscious, like within their collective memory, and it's actually been a factor as to why America is so keen on the politics of the Middle East.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think it's the same situation with Europe after the Ukrainian war, because the Germans they suck when it comes to like foreign policy. Seriously, they do. They always fuck up. They picked up with Bismarck. Afterwards, it's being to shit.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Angela Merkel definitely did not help with that.
Oh, I think Merkel is probably the worst leader that Germany ever had.
What?
since since wait, worst leader
No,
since
stand
World
by
War
what
II.
you said. Stand by
No,
what you
no,
said.
no.
Hey, hey, I stand by it. I don't give a fuck. Hey, she did not represent the fatherland, all right? She's
uh, but I mean, the reality of the matter is that Germany was actually completely dependent on Russian gas, and it still is. Even as the war is going on in Ukraine, Europe is still importing gas from Russia.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. Whenever Russia defeated Germany in World War II, Germany has been completely dependent on Russia. And that I understand Germany's sentiment, to being anti-Russia. Um, Even though it's hard to deviate from a country that you depend so much on, um, especially whenever they conquered your country.
I mean, I think there was actually an ideological reasoning behind that, and that was like liberalism. And one of the things that liberalism actually upholds is the idea that economic interdependency leads to peace. And boy, that they were wrong
Yeah,
about that. And they've always been wrong, a little bit wrong about that. I used to believe in that, but the reality of the matter is that you do not want to be economically interdependent with a country for which you have extremely difficult, very different, like political or ideological differences that could later down the road actually create problems. In fact, you don't want to be economically independent generally. And that is actually like something that I think is starting to like grow even more within like European countries. The French definitely have that thinking going on. Uh, the Spaniards also have that thinking going on, in my majority within like the conservatives too.
mhm.
Especially when it comes to like something so important like energy, which is what sustains your economy.
Yeah,
The German economy is not doing very well right now, in part because of like the huge increase in the cost of energy.
yeah, yeah. So, what do you think the United States stance should be?
What it should be.
Or what? I mean, like, what would, if you were a diplomat, or if you were, let's say, just someone that could represent the United States, would you stay in Syria? Would you try to make ties? Would you leave? Would you um, suggest that Turkey regain territory back, or what do you think?
If I was the Chancellor of the United States, I don't know, man. Definitely, you should not retreat out of that because right now there is an important power vacuum, and you do want to be very careful about who's actually going to like take the power now, who's going to actually fill that vacuum.
Hmm.
And I will focus mostly on Turkey. I think that there needs to be like some sort of like political solution in regards to like the situation between like the Kurds and the Turks. And amongst them is like, listen, maybe Turkey could like stop attacking like the Kurds, and maybe the Kurds could actually start like sending weapons to like the different groups, separatist groups in Turkey. Because I understand Turkey too. I understand that they do not want to see their country like they don't want to see like the what is it called, like the not destruction but like the cutting of their country, the dismemberment of their
Yeah.
country.
Yeah, despite Erdogan, despite his ailments, he's a strong leader. He's definitely gotten Turkey back on its feet for sure.
No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. He has been a disaster.
He's been a disaster, but you know, Turkey definitely hasn't had anyone to sustain Turkey the way Erdogan has.
No, no.
Like who could rival Erdogan? You know, in
Literally
Turkey.
anyone. Literally anyone.
Put Merkel in there. Put Angela Merkel in there. It's hard to say. You know, like we're gonna let's watch a video. You know, has to deal with the U.S. Involvement. Obviously, we probably heard a little bit about this. So we're gonna watch the Hindustan Times. You know, we're not gonna watch CNN.
I love internationalist propaganda. I mean, it is interesting, for example, that the Hindus, for example, are super pro-Israel. Have you noticed that?
The Hindus.
Yeah. Let's see. Breaking news
Well,
here to rebels. U.S. conducts airstrikes targeting ISIS camps. India.
75 ISIS targets in central Syria.
Yeah, they do not want to allow like those chemical weapons to fall into
To
into
Islamic fundamentalists for sure.
yeah, that would be bad news. Like there's
Yeah,
definitely a lot of like, nervousness going on. And I would say that is part of the reason why I mean mainstream media here in the West has actually been called out, especially as for
mhm.
example like the BBC actually referred to like the leader of the rebels as part of like what is called like the soft jihad.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like they that's what they do. You know, like the MSM over here in the United States. They definitely are very pro any rebel group, really, any rebel group.
Well, rebel groups that aligns with their interests, with the whole American interest.
So actually, we'll watch this one. We're gonna watch Fox News. They got
God damn. Mhm. I cannot hear it, Orlando.
okay. Let me get this up. Let me know if you can. Okay, hold up. How about now?
Cannot hear it. We have technical issues,
Got it.
gentlemen.
Huh? Hold up. Let me see if I can.
Biden.
Good old
The best.
Biden.
I love Biden. I ride with him. Riding with Biden.
Yeah. You know what? You saw that meme, right? Where it's like the last vote, Trump won by one vote, and who was that last vote? It was all Biden.
Bro, I'm convinced that he voted for Trump.
Dude, I am too. I feel like he voted for Trump, dude.
Fuck you, fuck you, Kamala. Got you, bitch. That's what you get for kicking me out, bitch.
Well, can you hear it now? Hold up.
No. Okay. Now try increasing like the volume all the way. Nope. We're gonna have to
How about
fire the
now?
producer or something.
Were you able to hear it?
Nope, nothing.
Okay, no worries. We're just gonna leave it playing. Right here it says, the yeah. Okay, here it is. Yeah. So U.S. conducts strikes, airstrikes on ISIS. I was just wanting to see the map. So they conducted strikes on Aleppo, in those regions where the ISIS is at. So I personally think that the U.S. Sh- okay, right here it says there should be no doubt we will not allow ISIS to reconstitute and take advantage of the current situation in Syria.
Smart
Um,
move.
yeah, I understand, man. Um, Me personally, I do think that US should aim to be as energy independent as possible, but that has nothing to do with weapons of mass destruction coming into the hands of Islamic militants. That
Mhm.
hurts everyone, you know. Um, in a way, you're gonna have to sacrifice that kind of um, the energy conversation. Like at this point, the energy conversation doesn't really matter, especially because people with a hard Islamic philosophy, they're gonna use these kind of weapons. I feel like I don't know. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
I mean, it kind of. I think that it actually kind of goes both ways because it is difficult to actually build infrastructure in a region that is being controlled by a terrorist organization. You know, and at the same time, America actually still, for example, has like a key ally, which is Israel, and also that Europe's political instability is heavily tied to like the price of goods and services, which is tied to energy. So yeah, like those two things are actually aligned. Like being able to like destroy like these chemical weapons, which chemical weapons, try to nullify ISIS as much as possible. While at the same time securing that Syria is a stable country with a government that is aligned with Western interest. I think like the best case scenario in all of this is maybe Syria becoming similar to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, yeah, and also, yeah, we see in this map right here. There's on the coastal areas, the pro-Assad areas. There's that Russian base, naval base, and then a Russian air base. Um, it is a mess in Syria, bro. Like these factions, these different groups. Um, I kind of this is kind of controversial, but just make it Turkey. Just make it Turkey. Just
My brother in Christ, you want to bring back the fucking Ottoman Empire?
bring back the Ottoman Empire. Like at this point, who cares, dude? Like some other power, especially a NATO country. Is Turkey's in NATO, right?
They are. They are.
Yeah, that's probably a win for Syria. It could be it's a loss for Russia, but it's a win for Syria.
Right now, like some fucking Greek guy in Germany is like writing furiously in the comments.
Hey, he probably agreed with your last comment about Angela Merkel. he's like, he's the worst leader ever.
Worst leader since the 40s. The second worst leader since the 50s. Since the
Yo,
50s, eh?
man, she was the worst leader post 1943. 1939, 1941 is debatable. There was
No, it's not. Shut the fuck up.
so the we're gonna. Do you know this guy, Suleiman Ahmed?
No, first time I hear of him.
Cool. I kind of like this guy. He's a journalist. He does geopolitics. He does crypto. He does he's a smart guy. Mathematics, law.
Mathematics, law, physics. I remember like the election video. Mathematics, law, physics. That takes courage.
So yeah, we're just gonna watch his page a little bit, but yeah, he has this post that I saw. Let me see if I can find it.
Bro, this
Oh,
guy
that is
is.
crazy. What the heck? That is crazy, dude. I don't even want to watch that. That is wild. That is crazy. This is what they're doing to children in Gaza. Yeah, I agree. So, oh my gosh, that is crazy. So yeah, I think this is the Israel strikes in Syria.
It's it. No, I think that's Gaza actually.
Oh yeah, Gaza.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So another mosque destroyed in Gaza.
Only one side does this. I have a feeling that this guy does not like Israel.
Israeli soldiers set fire to the Zaid Ben Haritha school, which was sheltering displaced people in Beit Lahia. And that's just remarkable, man.
It is.
Yeah. This guy definitely. Google leaked docs reveal Google matched donations made to Israeli soldiers.
Professor Assad explains how Syria was just one of 7 governments that he wanted to overthrow to get his greater Israel. Man, like they're like the thing is like his focus there is focusing so much on like Israel intervening in Syria, but but at the same time they're kind of like celebrating the fall of Assad, also ignoring like Turkey was actually like intervening mostly the main intervention in Syria. This guy
Yeah.
is really into Israel. Oh, that's Bukele. Whoa, what does he say about Bukele?
Let's see what he says.
Oh yeah, they actually found like a bunch of gold in El Salvador.
Mm,
$3 trillion. Holy shit.
that's
Bro, you
wild.
don't want Bukele, you do not want to say that out loud, bro.
Don't say that to the U.S. is just gonna fucking.
Nah, bro, Canada.
Oh yeah, dude. No, yes, true. Canada, they're in Mexico too. They mine in Mexico.
They own a lot like mining operations throughout Latin America. And you know what? Sometimes those guys they're not going to say sorry.
Dude, we gotta watch out for the Canadians too, man.
Oh, those guys are war criminals.
So yeah, I don't know. This guy is obviously
Yeah. To
he's
the
obviously, yeah.
yeah. Not far from Damascus. Hey man, Israel has done fucked up shit. I don't doubt that at all, you know. But, and like the big issue, like for example, with Israel is like the situation is what are they actually thinking about doing in regards to Gaza in an aftermath of the war? Like, what is their long term plan? Because it seems that they're actually going to push towards settlements.
Yeah.
And if you ask me, that's actually like a terrible idea, you know. Especially is like what now? What now is going to happen in Gaza? Because Arabs are still going to be there. People are still going to be there, and there doesn't seem to be like a long-term plan about a reconstruction of Gaza, but
Yeah,
rather
no,
like
for sure.
I mean, most likely what's going to happen is that Israel is going to end up like permanently occupy Gaza, but yeah, it's hard to tell what the hell is going on.
Yeah, I definitely believe in the liberation, and I'm more pro Palestine. But the thing is that that doesn't mean I'm like anti-Israel. I'm more or less anti-Netanyahu. So, I believe a Jewish state can exist along with Arabic states. But the thing is that I think Netanyahu, he has to go, man. He has to go.
Hmm.
I think,
Yeah, because that's the issue with like the current like Israeli government, and it's that it is a coalition between Netanyahu's party and far right parties.
Mhm.
And the problem is that among like those far right parties is that some of them do have genocidal tendencies. Like
Definitely.
I think they actually had to like I mean they did kick him, but one of them was actually proposing like dropping a nuke in Gaza after the October 7th attack, which is insane. And there is definitely like this ideology of well, this planification of settlers, like implementing settlements, which fundamentally speaking, I think is only going to like bring in more conflicts later on down the road. And I would much prefer if Israel actually has like a long-term plan with Gaza, like installing like a I don't know like a puppet government that is
Mhm.
actually capable of like not actually stealing aid money, actually like investing in like the improvement of people's lives in there and reconstruction of the region.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just think that Israel is also kind of fed up with Palestine altogether. And that
Yeah.
fundamentally speaking, I think the Israeli would much rather if all of the people in Gaza were just exiled out of the strip.
Yeah. So I do have a contention with the settlements for sure. I don't think the settlements are going to be a long term peace um, solution, a peaceful solution. I think what could work, or obviously, is going to be Netanyahu and the government that's pretty right wing needs to go. Um, eh, the thing is that Israel might, in a way, they're not going to leave. Like Israel's not going anywhere. They're not. They're going to fight tooth and nail to stay where they're at.
Yeah.
They're not going to resettle. Israel's not going to move to Kenya. Israel's like they're not going to go. They are established. And the thing is that Arabic states they don't have much of a place to go. The Middle East is Arabic, and I feel like they feel like they've been fucked with by like Britain, France, and these kind of border structure lines, um, by Western governments. So it could be ideal that like Western governments have nothing to do with it, or they go all in and try to find a solution. You know, um, I, I personally think that Trump might, you know, have a less of a say in foreign policy. I personally do think that he's gonna be like, okay, let's just do more focus on this hemisphere, um, and I think that's ideal. Like, you just kind of have to leave the old world to do their thing, and you have to do with the new world and deal with the new world. You might have to fucking annex Mexico. You heard about that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Bro, some Mexicans were like, yeah, let's Mexicans were like, yeah, fuck it.
I mean, it's like Trump is going all about like deporting like 20 million Mexicans, but now he's gonna take all the Mexicans in. It's like fucking choose already, man. It's like, what are you gonna do,
Well, I think he's gonna deport Haitians and Venezuelans. And like,
bro? Venezuelans are actually getting a super bad rap in Latin America.
unfortunately, yeah. But I think the thing is that like over here Venezuelans are like the Door Dashers.
Yeah,
They're on it. Yeah, they're doing stuff. You know, they're working. They're hustling.
bro. I used to be a delivery guy myself. I used to do DoorDash.
Dude, that's yeah. Whenever I order DoorDash or when I go to a restaurant,
Venice-
sometimes I talk to them. I'm like, hey, you know, where you from? I've been to Venezuela too. What are you doing? And yeah, they're hustling, bro. So you can't send them to Israel. You can't send them to the Middle East, and they definitely don't want to go back to Venezuela.
Bro, it's like, do you want to make the situation in the Middle East worse?
Hey, you never know. You know, imagine Venezuelans in the Middle East.
Man. I mean, I was going to say, I mean, no, yeah, like that whole stereotype that Venezuelans are actually like delivery people. Bro, it happens here in Spain. It seems to happen also all of Latin America too. Like it's something about a Venezuelan and working as a delivery guy. Like here in Spain is Glovo. That's the application that people use for food delivery.
Yeah,
Venezuelans, always
yeah,
Venezuelans.
yeah. Um. Well, I think we should wrap it up. I know this was a short one. Do you have anything else to say?
I'm all good, man.
Yeah, man. This was pretty cool. On Yeah, everyone, thank you for watching.